You are listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast brought to you by Birmingham Live.
There we are. We're live and back with another edition of the Claret and Blue podcast. I'm James Rushton, joined again by John Townley and Pat Rowe, PGR_analytics. I've said those right. I didn't even say my own last name right, but how you doing, James?
I'm good, James. I'm good.
So we're on the high of the weekend. It was a fantastic win. The under-23s put a bit of a dampener on it last night after blowing a 3-1 lead to Blues, but, you know, what can you do?
Well, I think, you know what, let's get into that first. We don't actually speak about the under-23s a lot on the podcast. We're only here until about 12:30. So we've already spoke about the Leicester City match on the podcast. We're going to have a deeper dive about that. But Pat, I wanted to know about the under-23s. It was a tough game last night, but it's a bit of a barren under-23s team, isn't it? Because you've got a few of them actually called up. Jacob Ramsey's not playing for them anymore, senior member of the team. You've had a few injuries. And, of course, Carney Chukwuemeka now involved with the first team at Aston Villa. So what happened last night against the Blues?
Yeah, it was a depleted squad, I think. No Aaron Ramsey, no Cameron Archer, no Carney. I think Caleb and Davis were up top. Thorndike was involved. Robenham was, I don't know how to say his name. I've probably butchered that there, but he was involved even though he was on the bench for Gerrard, and you can see why he's on the bench for Gerrard, to be honest. He dictates the plays, strong in midfield, reads the game really well. He's good on the ball. But yeah, frantic start. I think Blues got the better of the first 10 minutes, then Trezeguet came into it. Trezeguet's return, forgot to mention that. He looked really bright, driving at the defence, quick passes, one-touch play, slotted away his penalty pretty emphatically as well. Davis was bullying the opposition the whole time. Caleb Chukwuemeka was a big part of that as well. I feel like they played well together up top. But when he went off and Trezeguet went off in the second half, all the momentum went with it and we just collapsed.
Happens, doesn't it? It happens in football, even more so in under-23s football. I feel like since I've been watching it, it can be very up and down. And Villa have got an excellent academy, much has been made of that. But I think even in the past years when you had your Rashawn Hepburn-Murphys and your Callum O'Hares, and a lot was made of that. John, what have you made of the under-23s this year?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, as Pat says, especially if you go back to last year too, I think you've got the likes of Kane Kesler and Louis Barry. We forget that we've got 4, 5, 6 players out on loan that won the FA Youth Cup. So you look at the kind of bulk squad that we have now with the 23s, some really good talent in there. And obviously, as you say, some of them are now in the first team. But a lot of them are out on loan too, which is really exciting. So it's pretty crazy how the academy is, almost taken shape in the last few years. But those players have been at the club since, years before then too. So it's almost like a really good blend that we're now investing loads in the academy. And plus, you've got existing players there that were already there, coming through now and, getting experience in the lower leagues and getting, men's football, should we say. So no, yeah, really exciting. It's interesting to see how those players as well come back to Bodymore Heath, and when Gerrard gets to look at the likes of Kesler and say Louis Barry, Brad Young, different lads, all different capabilities as well. So no, yeah, really exciting.
Quite ironic how the success in terms of league results of the academy has been harmed by how well it's doing and how these stars have went on to play for Louis Barry is on loan. You got your Finn Azaz who joined, who's on loan. Number of others, Kane Kesler, Hayden, as you said, and then of course Carney, Jacob Ramsey, and others kicking on into that first team. So, the fruits are there for us all to see. But Pat, let's get on to Villa versus Leicester. There's a lot to talk about in this match. I think first things first, let's go over some Kasper Schmeichel. I think we haven't kind of got enough of the Kasper Schmeichel incident. Myself and John were at the game, but you had the advantage of actually seeing the pictures, the kind of reaction as it unfolded on match day. Foul or not a foul? I think it's still the rules are still very unclear. The rules are long. Yeah. I think a lot of us made of the punctuation of the rules on a match of the day too. But yeah, everyone in the stadium absolutely infuriated. Bar the Leicester fans and Kasper Schmeichel and Leicester City, Brendan Rodgers, and all his stuff. Everyone was infuriated, mate.
Yeah, it was one of those, like the first goal, it's one of the first one I just didn't celebrate as much because I thought there's not a chance that like Konza's not offside there or whatever, and then the commentators were diving deep into it, but there was a player playing him on clearly, and then that second goal went in with Ramsey, and I literally lost my head like in my living room. I was like, oh, that's a goal, there's no chance they're going to disallow that, surely not. Saw the replays and they were talking about it, and I was still baffled as to how they can replay it that much. Then they go to the screen, don't they? And he looks at it, and I don't see how he comes to that conclusion. Then, obviously, Kasper Schmeichel gives his interview about his thumb that got hurt, but there was no impact on his thumb whatsoever. There was clear distance. I think the rule was that if the keeper makes the save and then has control of the ball, like in that manner, it doesn't account in the same way as having control of the ball. But I'm not sure. It's very technical, and there's like different rules flying around. Ultimately, it didn't cost us, but if that had cost us, I would have been fuming. It would have been up there with the the Kevin Friend incident at Crystal Palace, I think.
John, we can't get much into the actual chant, but I think the best thing that could have happened in that match in terms of the outcome and the fire in Villa's bellies was the disallowed goal, because there was an atmosphere there, wasn't there?
Yeah, no, I think you're probably right. I think that obviously the crowd got behind him as soon as that goal was disallowed. And I think it was mainly because everyone was, completely, say dumbfounded about why it wasn't a goal at Villa Park. The connection isn't too good, so you can't really just flick on your 4G and search the Premier League rules. So not many people knew why it was disallowed, and it was so obvious that you only had one hand on it. But as Pat says, those are the rules. Whether you like them or not, I struggle to believe why he'd have control of it if his hand's just on the ball. It's not really controlling it, is it? But hey, there you go. And no, I think you're right. I think the Villa Park crowd got behind him as soon as that goal was disallowed, especially because it was maybe not especially because it was Ramsey, but like the raw emotion that came from that goal, it all sort of, built up, and everyone was just really surprised when it wasn't given straight away, pretty much. But to be fair, that was straight on half time, and I think the players, you can feed off the crowd, but credit to the players, they come out after half time. There could have been, tails between the legs sort of thing, but no, they fed off the crowd really well. Got another really important win, and we could have won by more goals in the end, couldn't we? Obviously, Conte gets his goal, but you got so many chances there for Watkins and Ramsey again in the second half. It was a 4-1 game, wasn't it? Really, not 2-1.
Yeah, we had the ball in the back of the net twice, and it got pulled back, didn't it? I think McGinn's was a bit dodgy, but Watkins certainly had it. I think in these situations, it's almost like you have your authorities there to protect them. Leicester needed that protection completely, because Villa were all over them. And I mean, the first half was pretty hit and miss, but that second half they were just on fire, and thankfully there was a referee there to stop it getting out of control. If you're speaking from a Leicester City fan bias, because Villa, running absolute wild, and I think we've seen a big difference in how this team plays under Dean Smith to under Steven Gerrard. There's certainly probably an aspect of a new manager bounce, but it looks like they're pretty much on top of it, and we could have got more goals, and the XG Pat doesn't tell the full story because of how. Look at the two chances we had ruled out, the chances where there was a missed kick, the chances where I think Buendia was sliding in after creating the move where he didn't connect at all. Those don't count, and the XG was already pretty impressive, Pat. But when you consider the amount of chances Villa made and didn't click, or it was pulled back because of an incident, when John says 4-1, he's pretty much bang on, isn't he?
In terms of the XG, it was only 2 XG, but in terms of Villa this season, that's actually a massive improvement. It's the first time this season we've got over 1.5, so Gerrard's already kind of made that improvement. You're probably seeing the bit more of attacking play now, and I always thought it was going to be this game, to be honest. Like, you looked at the fixtures, like City, we did well. Like, you're always going to have to grind out a result there, but I thought that this game might be the one that we see that attacking style of football from Gerrard's team, and I thought that was the case, to be honest. I think Ollie Watkins had his most shot-creating actions of the game this season as well, 7, which is a high. I think only McGinn might have made that many. But yeah, it felt like, I don't know if you remember the Boxing Day, it Boxing Day against Palace?
Yes.
Watkins was just destined not to score, even though he was like one of the most lively players on the pitch. It just felt like one of those games that just wasn't going to fall for him. But it's promising that he's becoming that, like, doing everything you can ask of him and more, to be honest, for Gerrard. He's really thriving. And I feel like it might not have been his day against Leicester, but on another day he'll get 2 or 3 on a game like that.
Yeah, I think, again, it goes to show you kind of the credential that Aston Villa have, because the whole conversation prior to Steven Gerrard arriving was Villa couldn't win without this player. Now it's like Villa can only win now without this player. They have turned the corner. John, what is the main thing that you've seen under Gerrard in these matches so far that has changed after Dean Smith's departure?
In general, we're more compact, I think, defending. There's more energy, I think, about this. There's more willing to win second balls, to get in behind defences, to carry out Gerrard's game plan. We're not privy to what Gerrard's telling them at Bodymore Heath, but we're also not privy to how he's motivating the team as well, if that makes sense. Because to me, it just feels like we're more... That is how Steven Gerrard wants to play. It's obviously not to a final tier at the moment, so none of those players are his, technically speaking. And we don't know exactly how he wants to play, but you can tell that what the players are doing on the pitch, they're almost mimicking exactly what Gerrard would be doing with them on the training pitches at Bodymore. And I think Gerrard said the thing that surprised him most is that the players have taken on everything that he's asked them to do so far, and their application's been second to none. And I think it was a difficult one when Smith left, because you'd have thought at least some of the players would be disheartened, and I think they probably were very disheartened. And then when a new manager comes in, there was always a bit of a risk that they would be. I'm not too sure, but I don't know, maybe disheartened that Smith left and the new manager bounce wouldn't potentially be there. But Gerrard's just got him playing, and obviously his coaching staff too is, tactically speaking. Michael Beale's the one that's been setting the team up, I would presume, with input of Gerrard, of course. But just how quickly they've taken on Gerrard's, demands, that's what's impressed me the most. And yeah, we're more compact, we're more lively in the middle of the pitch, we're moving the ball quicker, and we just got more tenacity about this. I wouldn't have thought going into a game against Leicester City, even though they're in a bit of sticky form themselves, I wouldn't think they would be winning that game. But I think a lot of us were predicting that if we can get a couple of goals, we'll win that game. So yeah, it's all positive. 3 out of 4 wins so far, only losing to City, and we probably should have got at least a draw out of that game as well. So coming in the end of the season, I can see us being around that mid-table position, and what more could you want, considering how bad we were during that 5-game run, only the start of last month. So
I've interrupted. You'll be delighted, everyone, to know I've interrupted my reading of Russian history to study up on Steven Gerrard. And one thing that stood out was, I think some comments were made about Dean Smith and probably too much of the arm around the shoulder. One thing that stood out about Steven Gerrard was this kind of anxiety that seems to drive him, like he doesn't want to fail and let people down. And obviously there was a major incident in his career where he did let people down. It's become a bit of a meme. It's obviously the stuff that's chanted at him about the slip. But overall in his career, at these peak moments, it always seems to go back to the moment he didn't want to let anyone down. And there's that intensity about him, kind of brought on by the anxiety, the need for success. And that's backed by, I don't want to let fans down. I don't want to let the people who employ me down. I don't want to let myself or my family down. I don't want to let anyone in the local area down. He's backed massively by that. So I feel like, Pat, when they say about the standards improving at Aston Villa, do you think that's backed by Gerrard's personality?
What you just said is completely outlined in how we've been playing recently. I don't know about you or you two, what you think, but I feel like we keep starting quite slowly. Like, especially against City, I thought we were really frantic. I thought we were unorganised. And I thought we were getting battered at times in the first half against Leicester, to be honest. I think Harvey Barnes was causing problems. He grabbed his goal. I think we started quite slowly. We didn't really have control of the game until like the back end of the first half. And I think the way we come out of the second half and react in these games under Gerrard just outlines what you said. Like, he's to like the nth percentage or whatever. He just doesn't want to fail at all. Like, he's not going to let his side fail. He analyses the games, he sees the problems, and he addresses them immediately. And he probably digs into the players while doing so. I think he said, was it the City game? He gave a few players some home truths and it probably rolled them up a bit. And there was a reaction at half time. That's what you need. Especially, so if Villa can address this issue of coming out a bit slow in these games, not fall behind. Like, I know we came from behind there, and that's big, and it shows the mentality. But that's probably the next thing he wants to address is a slow start.
Do you think Gerrard's personality has stood out, John? Then against City, against Leicester, I feel like in the latter two, since Palace, I think Brighton was a bit of a gimme the first game, but since in the 3 games that have followed, do you feel like it's Gerrard's personality that's standing out as well as kind of the tactical knowledge brought by himself, Michael Beale, and the stuff?
Yeah, I think exactly that. What impressed me when Gerrard first came in, and everything that we've heard from Gerrard in the past too, he always references to Michael Beale and says he's one of the best coaches that I could work with, and he was never afraid to admit that he's not the perfect, manager, should we say, that the kind of full package you get, Gerrard, which I think was refreshing because it was honest, and he knows where his strengths are, but he knows also where his weaknesses might be. And I think Michael Beale said as well, he's the kind of coach who wants to be in and amongst the group, whereas Gerrard was the kind of person who wants to step away from the group and look at it from a whole perspective. And that's really important because you've got someone there that the players can turn to for a motivation. And, obviously that's only scratching the surface on what Gerrard brings to it. But then Michael Beale's the tactical side, and obviously you've got McAllister and Kershaw. There's different elements to that coaching staff too. But I think the personality really stands out, and especially when you need that instant impact, that instant sort of effect. And we can't forget there was 4 really tricky games as well: Brighton, Palace, Man City, and Leicester. 2 teams that we've almost stopped in Palace and Brighton because they started really well. Man City being, probably the Champions League finalists this season. And obviously Leicester too have been knocking on the door in the Champions League for the last, however long. So really encouraging. And I think exactly that. I think the personality that he brings to it is, really good, especially for the players, because we have quite a young squad as well. And to have, it's not just a good motivator or a good, effective speaker or leader. It's Steven Gerrard, and that's someone that the whole group, the whole squad will look up to. And whatever demands he sets on the teams, you'd be you want to carry that out, don't you? Because you know you're going to get it in your neck at half time. And I think that's exactly what probably what's happened, to be fair. Because I think Pat says, we started games quite slowly this season. Then we come into them. So that's probably a good barometer of the sort of success that he's getting out of his players by the words that he's using, by the tactics he's using, motivationally too.
I'm interested in bringing this back round to kind of the Leicester game and the recent fixtures, but more so Leicester. I'm interested to know what you think of the performance of Matty Cash. Pat, he's obviously nominated for the Fans Football of the Year award, so he's one of Villa's nominees for that Club Player of the Year award. What do you think? How well he did again? There was some criticism. There was a lot of positivity. He seems to be a player people are excited about, but one that still has an edge about it. I think it refers to his crossing, maybe, and the lack of impact from that. I think he seems to absolutely just smack it.
He just it.
Needs to have a bit of love for the football. I think is the general gist. But what have you made of him, especially the last game?
In the opening moments of that first game, like I said, Harvey Barnes having a bit of joy down that left wing, wasn't he? And Mate Cash, there was a few times he might dived in a bit and you were going, oh, thank God he's got a touch on the ball there. And I think there was one where he might have clipped the ankles of, I can't remember which player it was, and they didn't go down or they went down, it just wasn't given. But other than that, I feel like he really dug in the performance. Like maybe it was a ropey first half, but other than that, I think he recorded 10 successful tackles, which is more than any other Premier League player in a game this season, which is just amazing. Like I think players like average 3. And then what else did he get here? It was 3 clearances, 1 off the line, 1 block shot, 5 interceptions, 9 duels won out of the 11. So it's just a monster game defensively for him. But yeah, as you said, the one improvement I'll probably get, mate, for him is a bit of composure when he's running onto those balls. Like he takes it on the run, he's running at pace, and he probably just gets a bit overexcited, to be honest, and just absolutely leathers it past everyone. If he can just, take the time to look up, maybe try and pick Watkins out or just put it in an area across the face of goal or something, then that's probably the last piece to his game, because he's got the ability driving forward, he's got the ability defensively, the positioning, he can defend crosses, all that. It's just that production in the final third, which we have seen at times, to be honest, when he was playing that wing-back role. Obviously, he got his goal, got an assist in the Carabao Cup, so he can cross the ball. It was a perfect cross for Cameron Archer, I'm pretty sure. I was just behind it. Flowed it in beautifully, but yeah, so the potential's there. It's just consistency for him, I think,
especially with how important these fullbacks seem to Gerrard's system. Another part of Gerrard's system, actually, John, is it looks like there's been a lack of the out-and-out wingers that we saw under Dean Smith, and in the first stages of Gerrard's reign. It looks like they went for almost 2 number 10s in Wendy and Ramsey. Speak to me a bit about that, because it looks, even this change in the Man City game as well, it looks like just after half-time there was a change to kind of be a bit more narrow and be a bit more compact. What have you noticed about that?
Yeah, I think it's something that obviously is brought from Rangers. The wingers give the width, the wing-backs give the width, or the full-backs. And then your wide attackers are almost inside forwards, which I think works really well, to be fair, especially for someone like a Buendia. In the pre-match press conference, Gerrard picked Buendia out as a good example to kind of use to explain that role, and just said it's not necessarily about them being the narrow forwards, it's about them linking the play and kind of being given that the comfort to sort of not necessarily do what they want, but when they've got the ball, be expressive, be the talent that you can be really on the ball, and that's exactly what you need from someone like a Buendia. And I think he particularly has come into his own in the last few weeks. I think after each game, you're sort of saying to yourself, "Oh, that's probably the best that Buendia's played," which speaks volumes about how he's adapting to Gerrard's system. But no, it's certainly a positive thing, I think, because you'd have thought maybe Danny Ings, when he comes back from injury or when he's fully fit, would probably come back into the team at some point. And then you've got Ollie Watkins left side, who's like an inside forward again. So in my head, it all works really well. And before Gerrard took over, you could probably say on paper this should work. But the sort of proof's in the pudding, and it's coming off at the moment. And he wants that dynamic, that flexible front three, and that the formation that we're playing certainly lends itself to that. And then you've got the midfielders behind it as well, linking too. So no, I think it's really encouraging. And the Leicester game for me was probably the best that we've done that system, if that makes sense, going forward. Because you've got even like a Douglas Luiz linking with the left-sided players, and then on the right side you've got a McGinn, and it all worked really well against Leicester. I think that's definitely the best that we've done. The combinations that Gerrard wants to see every week.
There's a lot of players I want to speak about that have been kind of floating through my mind. I think you could, Konza, McGinn. Ashley Young and Martinez. What a brilliant save he pulled off out of nowhere in a really kind of dicey moment for Villa. But I wanted to go into one of those advanced midfielders, John. Jacob Ramsey, poor Jacob Ramsey scored a wonder goal in a dead game and got his first goal at Villa Park unfairly stricken off. What have you made of his right? Because he has come a long way since the player who was kind of featuring in bits and starts that season. Yeah. He looks, I say it's a cliche, but first name on the team sheet, he's up there. He does a role. He serves Villa really, really well. What have you made of his ascent?
I think if you give it one word, it's just matured, perhaps. Not that sounds a bit negative, really. He wasn't mature last season, and he clearly was. But I think when you look at last season, he's playing away against Wolves, away against Leeds. And we're winning the game 1-0, and you've got back then he would have been 19-year-old in the middle of the park. You can't look at that and say, oh, he's not impacting the game, or he's not doing this and that. He's clearly doing a really good job. And to then bring that on to this season, I always look back at that Newcastle game at the start of the season, because that's the first time he's really played in front of that sort of 42,000 fully packed Villa Park. And in the first couple of the first half maybe, or the first couple of minutes of the game, the ball was bouncing off him a little bit and he was struggling to get into it. And then that's not a criticism. He just needed that adjustment, little adjustment period to get into it. And that's, obviously testament to Dean Smith that gave him that, the opportunity to do that since he came through the door, really. So no, Jacob Ramsey's come on leaps and bounds, but I don't think it's necessarily a shock to anyone, but just seeing it, live in person, that is not necessarily controlling games. But there's certainly a potential for him to do that, and is absolutely part of Gerrard's plans. And I'm sure going forward, he say James will be one of the first names on that team sheet, and rightly so, because what he does for the team is really important as well. He's not just being played because he's a young player, and then people want to see a young player come through the ranks. Gerrard will be ruthless with his team and say, we need this player for this game, and that suits Jacob Ramsey at the moment because he's thriving off that pressure to keep the shirt. And I can only see him improving under Gerrard as well, because you look at the whole midfield. What midfielder doesn't want to play under Steven Gerrard? So, no, really encouraging for Ramsey, and I'm sure he's really excited about the future with the club now, for sure.
One interesting thing to note is that in the last two games, that academy graduate playing in that advanced role has almost come into the same position and spanned the chance. So at some point he's going to go in, and hopefully it's not like one of the substitutes that puts in. Hopefully it's that those homegrown heroes. I say homegrown heroes. We took Chukwuemeka from Northampton, but hopefully it's one of those young academy grads who can pull it in and get their moment in the headlights, because it's been a long time coming. Pat, I wanted to go on to another person. He's playing in midfield, no academy graduate, but someone who has bounced back this year. It's wonderful, Marvelous Nakamba. Almost went Marvelous Nakamba.
Marvelous.
Can't be doing that. But no, barely any starts last season. Really positive first year in the Premier League. Wasn't in the team last season much. This year, he's almost progressed past the amount of starts. He's closing in on it. So he's also made a pretty good impact. And it looks like this shape, the coaching, the how he's been drilled to play a bit more simpler game, it's working out, and it seems like he's doing a bit more than he's been asked to. Now it seems like he's getting really, really comfortable in his role. Tell me a bit about Marvelous.
Well, he has been marvellous, hasn't he? I think the only problem we've ever had with Marvelous Nakamba is we all feel a bit on edge when he was on the ball. Like, he wasn't that comfortable. He couldn't really pass the ball with his right foot. If he was closed down or under pressure, he was probably quite susceptible for an error. I think it was the Tottenham game towards the end of the last season. He gave it to Bergwijn after he was pressed, and we went 1-0 down after a wonder goal straight after that. So that's always been the issue in Nakamba. I think no one can ever question his defensive capabilities in the team. He's the anchor. He can break a play perfectly. But since Gerrard's come in, I think, so the stats for the Leicester game, 92.9% pass accuracy with one key pass, one long ball completed, which is 100% dribbling success rate, and won about 8 duels. He's doing everything and more that Gerrard can ask of him. And I think, I don't know if I'm speaking for the rest of the fan base, but personally, when I see him on the ball now, I'm completely confident that he's going to just either use it effectively or get out of a situation he's in. And I'm not as stressed when he's on the ball, to be honest. Me and my cousin were talking about, we were watching, what has actually happened to Nakamba here? Because it's outstanding. He's playing so well under Gerrard. It's ridiculous. Like, breaking up play, dribbling into space. He's composed on the ball. He's also progressing the ball a bit more than he usually did. So yeah, it's great to see. To be honest, he's man banging form, and long may it continue.
You know, no disrespect to Nakamba, but I feel like under Gerrard and Beale, it looks like his game has been planned out a bit more rather than relying mainly on the instinct that got players like, you know, your Grealish and your Douglas Luiz and the John McGinns through. It looks like he has been taken aside and drilled on a certain few passes to make, and he's absolutely excelling. Ian Leach, you said you didn't speak on behalf of the fan base. Ian Leach, whose comment was brought up a few moments ago, said Nakamba has been outstanding. So, you know, I think he wasn't up for the player of the match, and people kicked off about that. He was the Villa's player of the month, though, which I think it speaks credit to him, because he's someone. You know, Villa probably do need a central midfielder, but the concerns about that strength, that metal in the middle, I feel has been met in a few key games, and you don't know because it's only a small sample size, John. But Nakamba really kicking on well.
In general, we know that's a really important component of the Gerrard team. At Rangers, he had that sitting player that would allow the two midfielders either side of them to go on, the wing backs go on. So you need that protection. But it's not just protection when we're going forward; it's protection when we are defending as well. And Nakamba's, as you say, excelled. He hasn't really put a foot wrong yet, which, we're not trying to jinx him, but you need to give the guy credit when he deserves it. And he's been here for a few years now. And I think Pat says at the start, sometimes you're giving the ball and you'd be a bit flustered, or would give it away a bit sloppily. But he hasn't done that yet, so we need to. We can't be sort of almost anticipating an error, should we say. The guy's earning the shirt, and he's not going to lose it, even if we sign a 20 million pound midfielder to cover that position as well, to add competition. Nakamba's not losing that shirt, and that might be the best thing for him as well if we would sign another midfielder, which I presume that we will do, because we are quite lightly stocked in that area as a number 6 of the sort of player that Nakamba is. It might be something that pushes him on again. But no, really, really good start from Nakamba, especially under Gerrard. He showed glimpses under Smith for the last few years, but once he's now been given a really, extended run in the team, so to be a player of the month in a team that has won 3 out of 4 games, that's got the likes of a John McGinn playing out of his skin, Ollie Watkins, he's not the only player that's playing well, but to be the player that shines in that system, full credit to him.
Yeah, he's played against your Ndidi, your Rodri. Don't think he played Chiarte, Basuma playing for Brighton. So all those strong kind of prototype defensive midfielders that you look at, those central midfielders, Nakamba has stood alongside them very, very well. And in a game, this is the final word on Leicester, in a game where Watkins had impact, Ramsey had impact, Ezri scored twice, when Dia rose up, there was plenty on show there from Villa's players. Even your Matty Cashes, your Martinez saving, Ashling, everyone was involved to some extent or had some impact. For your defensive midfielder to be voted the man of the match, to have the plaudits, speaks incredibly well for him, and he'll have an important role as we return to, Stevie G returns to his proving grounds in Anfield. Big return, lots been made of it. Gerrard is very, very calm and collected, but it looks like another big game for Nakamba. It looks like a game where Villa will be the underdogs. It looks like a game where win, lose or draw, we should be impressed with what Villa can pull out based on that City game. This is another acid test, a free hit for Aston Villa to show what they're all about away from home as well.
Wolves showed on the weekend that you can frustrate Liverpool if you're with a solid defensive unit. I think we're ready for the challenge. I think we're going to go there compact, fired up for it, and be able to hit them on the counter. I think it's a different challenge to the Man City game. Obviously, I think Liverpool play a bit faster and don't have as much possession as City might, and I think they're quite similar to us in the fact that they play quite fast when they do break, with Salah, Mane and Jota or Firmino and whatnot. But yeah, I've full faith in the defence to remain solid. I think Stevie G will be fully prepared for it. And I'm ready for it, excited.
Really looking forward to this Liverpool game, because again, it's like the Man City game, terrified before, left really, really happy with how Villa applied themselves. So hoping for that again, because it's been a long time where you can go to watch a Villa match, they get well beaten, but you're left proud with what your team's put in, rather than being stunned at their lack of any impact on the game. Just a final word on looking forward to Villa versus Liverpool, John.
We know it's going to be a tricky game, but it's one that we can go into with full confidence. Don't get me wrong, we could lose the game 2 or 3-0, but you can still put up a good performance like we did against Chelsea under Smith, a couple of months ago now, wasn't it? There's ways of losing, and I'm sure that we won't lose without trying. And I think that's all we can do, really. We know they're a top team. We'll go there and, like you say, like Brighton did, try and take the game to them, play our way. Gerrard will want to try and impress, not because of Liverpool, just because of he's the Villa manager now, isn't he? And he wants to keep up that. That's the start that he's had. I keep trying to say it's an unbeaten start, but obviously you lose to Man City. But it feels like we're almost not necessarily unbeatable at the moment, but nothing is going to faze us, is what I'm trying to say. And obviously Liverpool will be strong favourites for the game. They've got top players. We all know that. They could probably go top of the league if they beat us. And they don't need any added motivation to try and get one over on Gerrard as well. But as I say, we'll be going there with full confidence, and we'll be in no better position to go to Anfield in the since God knows when, to try and get a result from Liverpool. So no, really looking forward to it.
Wicked. Well, there you have it. Villa can be beaten then, I guess, John, but they can't be broken like they have been more than a few times in the past. We'll leave it there. You know where to find us at Claret and Blue. Get us on Spotify, get us on YouTube. I think we'll have another Football Manager stream on Thursday. We'll leave it there, and we'll look forward to bringing you coverage of Aston Villa, hopefully performing really well against Liverpool on the weekend in a big match with a big narrative.
Thank you for listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please do let us know. We love hearing your feedback. We'll be back soon with another episode, but until then, up the Villa.